Hi, welcome back. I'm Kimile, and this is Heal with Kimile podcast. So, if you've ever gone through a betrayal or some sort of a loss with somebody, it changes us, right? But do we have a way or a vote in how it changes us? Can we maybe not let it ruin us? Look, I think that we grow mostly from our pain. I don't know a lot of people that grow from never struggling. And I think what we learn when we go through something difficult is who we really are and what we can handle and how tough we really are. So we learn nothing from success. We don't really get a lot out of success. I know that sounds crazy. We all want success. We all crave success. But what are we learning from success? I've coached a lot of people, even myself included. And when I hit a big milestone or people, I got that money or I got that job, it's off to the next. They're not really stopping and relishing in something they learned. They learn they can do it. So they're just keep on going. We learn from this stuff that stops us in our tracks. We learn from the failures and from the pain. And success happens for failing hundreds of times. I mean, it's almost like you get to that successful point after it's like a 25-year overnight success moment, right? But we really only learn from the structure of pain, the resistance. And I can liken, lifting weights. You have to resist. You have to have a resistance to build those muscles. That's how your body grows. So everybody in life has to go through their own struggle, their own suffering. And without that suffering, there is not going to be breakthroughs for people. That's what grows people up, matures them. You've probably all heard, that dog is a better dog after a litter of pups, because that dog's gone through something. They've grown, they've learned. I think people that become parents, they have to start putting their selfish stuff aside. They're not as needy. Again, we all grow up when we have children. And I do feel like when we have losses or challenges, that is where we're put to the test. So we all want happy life and success and everything. But if you don't develop the character or the inner strength from loss or failures, you're probably not going to be a good, successful person. You've always met those people that have it all and they're kind of egotistical and they present maybe like they're a-holes, they're just not good people. They're not nice. They're mean to the help. They're mean to like waiters, waitresses, people that are doing things for them. They're just not kind. Those people have success or some sort of appearance of success. Okay. Maybe they have money and they really don't have their inner self really worked out. I think mean people are immature people. It's more about maturity than it is anything. But again, how do you develop yourself? You have to fail and continue to fail. And then when you make it, hopefully you stay humble. Maybe you have gratitude and appreciation. Failure is shameful. We don't always talk about it, especially men. I think women, they'll talk more about where they're struggling. But men, if they're failing, they don't want to bring it up. They're embarrassed. They're supposed to already be there. They're supposed to be tough and strong. And it takes a lot of strength sometimes as a person that thinks they're supposed to be perfect to admit they failed, they messed up. So these people are walking around, they feel like frauds. It's that imposter syndrome energy. And so they're just not feeling like they can really belong. I noticed with some of my male clients that the angry ones, the ones that are kind of bitter and angry, they don't feel good enough. And so they come across angry, they're struggling with something. And the most angry people, I think, go to the vice of smoking. So most people that smoke cigarettes have a lot of anger they're struggling with. But if there's been something unfair that's happened to men in their lives and they didn't overcome it, they just felt beat by it and it was unfair. They feel like it's unfair. What I've seen some men do is just get angry. Look, a lot of men that have some sort of loss, they just get angry. They don't feel like they can cry. They don't feel like they can deal with their emotions. It's like, well, it's just how it is. I just got to get over it. Because they don't want to feel like they're a victim. They don't want to admit that they're hurting. So I say that there's got to be a different approach to failure. And to me, failure is teaching us something. When life happens on us, when life lifes, I always say, if you go through a breakup or a hardship or a health issue, and so when life lifes on us, if we don't stop and go that direction, like Marcus Aurelius would say, the obstacle is the way, right? So if you don't stop your world and deal with what's in front of you, and like if you have a death, you sit and you have to grieve, you got to cry. If you're still trying to ignore that there's something going on, that sticks around. Like I'm telling you, buried feelings, they don't ever die. They will just come back in uglier ways and uglier cravings and desires. I have a handful of people that really drink a lot. They get off work and they just start drinking. That's what they do. They drink. And that's really kind of a coping mechanism. That's how they're coping because they're in some sort of pain. But it seems automatic for them. This is now a habit. This is now a hobby. It's my social life. That's what I do. But that alcohol is doing its job. It's numbing them out. And so I have a lot of clients that are dealing with their pain and their failings and their stress levels and what they would consider their failures with a substance, with something that they use routinely to kind of quit feeling because it's hard for them to face that something went wrong or maybe they are part of something going wrong. I think it's really hard to be the one, especially inside of a relationship, that has hurt the other partner. It's hurt the other person because you feel bad. You're always feeling bad. You feel guilty all the time. And so I think a lot of people that feel guilty all the time, I do see a lot of substance abuse with that. They have a lot of guilt and shame. And so they try and forget. Alcohol is one of the best painkillers there is, right? So we do need to stop and talk about failures and talk about the shame. I love AA for that reason. My dad was a drinker. My dad was an alcoholic. And I just watched him just beat himself up all the time. He got numerous DUIs, right? Back in the day when you weren't in prison for it, but he had, I don't know, 4, 5, 6, a lot of DUIs. And he was a slow driver. He wasn't driving fast. He was a slow driver. But he was incarcerated a few times, and I would go get him out of jail to have Thanksgiving dinner with our family and then take him back, right? Really embarrassing for him, really painful for him. I watched him. He was just embarrassed. He was so ashamed, right? And I think he was court ordered to go to AA meetings. I loved AA. That's where I think got my start in thinking I wanted to help people. I love AA because people talk about their failures. They talk about their struggles. They're honest. And once people start figuring out how good that feels when they can start letting their pain out and they can, there's no cross talking in an AA meeting, maybe first names only, but people aren't, shaming and blaming and giving advice. When you're in AA, it's, I admit I'm powerless over this. And a lot of people, what I figured out, are drinking over some sort of failure. They feel like a failure. And then on this end of my life, as a counselor, I know that failure is what's growing them. So at the same time, they're stuck by a failure. They're numbing out because of this failure. And yet they could grow so much from that failure and let that failure be a gift to them, right? But I love AA. I love the 12-step programs because people learn humility and they can start telling on themselves. And just the stories, just the shares. I had a dear friend of mine who was a counselor, and he became a counselor because he had addiction issues, alcohol issues. Well, he killed somebody. He killed somebody by running them over. It was a vagrant. It was someone who shouldn't have been in the street anyway. But he was not his best self because he was inebriated, and that was his quote bottom. In his mind, he was a complete failure. But that brought him to his knees, and he gave up drinking, became a counselor. It changed his whole life around. It's drastic, but that failure, again, he was failing himself, and he failed that person. That gave him, in his mind, a second chance. He could have gone to prison. It could have gone so bad for him. But over a series of things, and he admitted it, he freely admitted it. Yep, I was drinking. I shouldn't have been behind the wheel. He got a DUI. All these things happened, and he didn't go to prison for life. But he sentenced himself to being a contribution to those that are struggling with addiction. And I don't know anyone that's addicted in my practice that I've not worked with that wasn't coping with some sort of failure or pain that they feel about themselves, the self-loathing, the self-guilt, the self-hatred. They choose a substance to just forget because they hate themselves so bad. When someone's going through that, when they're really hard on themselves, it's because they've got a failure they haven't been able to overcome or learn from. And they feel stuck by it. They feel stopped by it. But I'm telling you, we learn nothing from success. We learn from failing. And I think we're all here in life to learn something. I don't think it's all just supposed to be peaches and cream. We're in school called life to me. So I've got enough people that once they start accepting themselves as they are and stop the judgments of the self-hatred, and they can talk about their failings and where they've let people down, hurt themselves, hurt other people, and they can recover from that. They can redeem, like there's a redemption. And most of the time, people find redemption in spirituality, in some sort of spirituality, whether it is AA. AA can be a spiritual program, higher power, or they have a religion, or they just start praying. They just start trusting that there's something spiritual moving in their life. You know, people change when they have those kind of moments. People change when they're in pain. Sometimes that's the one thing that brings us to our knees, to get us to look up, to get us to start trusting that there's a path or something, is that unconscious act of harming another or harming yourself. And how do you redeem yourself? Well, you have to bring that from the unconscious to the conscious. You've got to talk about it. You've got to listen to yourself. You've got to cry and feel and make amends. And that's almost as good as it gets. I mean, sometimes we can't bring people back. We can't bring the past back. We can't go back and change the past. But I have met the most amazing people that are recovered from their vices, from alcohol or drugs. They quit killing themselves, is what they did. They quit killing themselves, and they started trying to be a contribution to humanity. And so they became of service. They will put themselves out for other people. My favorite people are recovered versions of them, of their old self. And I'm not saying just even addicts. It's like people that used to just be ragers, or assholes, and they realize this isn't working for me anymore. I don't want to be this anymore. I want to change. It takes a lot of strength to change, and it takes a lot of strength to admit that the failure worked. The failure changed you. But to me, when someone's failing, I know a huge breakthrough is possible. And you got to pull back and go, what can I learn from this? What am I learning from this? I have clients that are overweight. And I say, well, what has fat taught you? What has being fat taught you? What has being an alcoholic taught you? What has been being a cheater taught you? What are you learning about yourself? What are you learning about people? What are you learning about humanity? Because these struggles that we have, where we feel like we're failures, that's something that's teaching you something. Like it's something that is trying to teach you something. If you avoid it and you don't work on yourself, then you're missing the whole point. The pain is here to teach you. What is the pain teaching you? And it can come in a lot of forms. Pain can come in the form of an addiction. Pain can come in the form of a health crisis, a health issue, a weight issue, an image issue. We're so image conscious on this planet. We all got to look good, Well, that's why I do hair, I do makeup, I do all that stuff too. But it really is catastrophic if you have facial dysphoria, So what is that teaching you? What can that teach you? What is being embarrassed teaching you? That's what people have to stop and face if they're going to let go of their vices, is that it's okay to feel embarrassed. It's okay to feel sad. A lot of the rejection, what is rejection teaching you? What has abuse taught you? Let it teach you something. Let the pain, let the trauma teach you something. Become a better version of yourself because of it. Look, and some of these things may take a long time to recover from. It can take years to recover from that. But if you have this attitude of, I'm just not going to let it fully beat me. It may take me a long time to recover from this, but I'm going to recover from this. I'll tell you, there's so many people that have gone through some tragic accidents, and some people they bury themselves. They're hiding. They wear, they wear things to cover themselves up. And other people are just walking around, scars and all, warts and all. They don't care. It's an attitude difference. It's an acceptance difference. And look, the active form of love, I say, is acceptance. When you can fully accept yourself exactly as you are, chubby and all, wrinkled, whatever, having a body. I mean, we all have a body. Our bodies are never always perfect. That's just not how it goes. But when you can accept yourself as you are, that's how you start loving yourself. In a relationship, if you can accept your partner as they are, failed, trust and all, if you can accept them, love can grow. Love can begin again. But if you resist them, resistance causes the pain. Rejection causes the pain. And a lot of times, the people that are closest to us hurt us the most. That is true. But something about them is mirrored in us. Like, what is it we're supposed to learn from that, right? So if they're doing something unconscious, if they're, betraying our trust, what is it we're supposed to learn from that? It's not personal necessarily. It's hard not to take it personal. I know, I get it. But if you take it personal, you're not learning anything. You're a victim of it. Is that what you're supposed to learn as you're a victim? Is that what you're supposed to get out of as you're a victim? I don't think so. I don't think that's exactly what pain's for. I don't think that's what that's for. We all behave poorly. We all behave poorly. We all react. But in that reaction, again, what are you getting out of that reaction? And you're going to be self-righteous. You're right. They're sinners. They're awful. They're bad, sick, and wrong. I hate them. I'm going to, is that who you want to become, as that person that's wounded, and you're going to walk around and live in your wound and then create stories around that and reasons you get to be a bitch, you get to be hateful, you get to get revenge, or are you going to look at that, and if you can accept that behavior, okay. If you can't accept the behavior, be straight about that, but don't let the behavior, that trigger, ruin your whole life. It doesn't have to stop you. It doesn't have to hurt you, frankly. I know that sounds, but it doesn't have to hurt you. Look, I've been cheated on. I've had relationships. My first husband got my neighbor pregnant. Well, do I want to stay and babysit that kid? I do not. Me and my son left. Nathan was little. He was one. He was a baby. But I chose my path at that point. And, I had to let stuff go. But again, that grew me. I was it. I was 100% responsible. And if I wouldn't have figured out how to survive, where would we be? I had no one to count on but me. And that I'm grateful for, frankly. It made me strong. And it also gave me some really great insight in how to handle someone like that, someone who's going through that kind of stuff. And all my mistakes in my relationships, I think, has made me a damn good counselor, frankly. I've made a lot of them. But the failure I've learned from. I've learned from the failures, and I've learned from people failing me. So I don't personalize that anymore. I don't, take it on and, well, what's wrong with me? And if I woulda, coulda, should. No, it's where they're at. They're going through whatever they're going through. And I can, engage it, fight it, let it hurt me. Or I can say, this is what you got to sort through. And I'm just not going to add oxygen to that fire. I'm going to let you figure that out if that's something you got to figure out. And I got to figure out what I got to do with it. So I think, taking individual time when there's been some sort of breach and working through where you are at because of that, being honest about that, and then either move forward or accept. I want to say acceptance. Acceptance to me is forgiveness. I don't always say run to forgiveness. I think if you get to forgiveness too quickly, you haven't processed it. You haven't really learned anything from it. And it takes time to let things absorb. You don't know how you're going to feel in a day, a week, a month, a year. So when something happens, stop and let it change you. Let it teach you. Let it impact you. Resisting that, running from that pain and the failure isn't going to help. It just procrastinates your life. And I find people that refuse to deal with something, they go in this little rabbit hole. And so they kind of just, they take their time in recovering. But that does steal a lot of their life force. It steals a lot of their energy. And it just takes so long. So I'm always, well, how can I grow from this? And I help people grow from their pain. So there's something valuable in our pain. It teaches us a lot. It teaches a lot about ourselves. So if this is you and you're going through something, you don't know what the pain is supposed to teach you, and you'd like to, learn from it so you can move forward in your life and have a different experience of life, I'd love to talk to you. So you can find me at healwithkimile.com. That's HEAL with KIMILE.com. Don't be a stranger. Get a hold of me. Thanks. Bye-bye.